It got absolutely creamed. I went out trying to explain that proposal, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say something not very nice. One of the questions I got every time, and I got tired of answering it, how do you collect a half a penny? Just burned me up. Well, I don't know. How do you collect 4 cents on $1.11? You use you round her up and down, but I got it every time. So I give him credit for that. All right, that's over. Now we have an election. And Jim Blanchard is running against John Engler. I'm now head of the Senate Fiscal Agency. And John Engler is running on the issue of cutting property tax. I mean, that's what he's running on. And 17,000 votes later, he wins. Very unusual, okay? So he starts out by saying, I'm going to cut property taxes. Whoa. The House is Democratic. The Senate is Republican. John Engler's a conservative Republican. Of course, given today's line, I don't know if he's moved into the moderate range or not, but anyways, conservative Republican, and the House wasn't going to give him a property tax cut. It just wasn't going to happen. So the governor collected signatures. We went out to the public. We had something called cut and cap, and I went out to sell it. And it was a 20% cut in property taxes with, we argued that a lot would be made up, but the language didn't guarantee it. So it was a 20% cut basically with no guarantee there was going to be a makeup. It failed, but wait. It failed 41-59. Now, in most democracies, 41-59 is a crush. Every organized group opposed that. And you still got 41%? There was something out there. People were really upset. So that was in 1992. In 1993, John Engler called the MEA. They got together. I helped negotiate the deal. And now we have an agreement between John Engler and the MEA to increase the sales tax and decrease property taxes. Shoot, we've got it covered. We're going to win. We go out and we lose. It was closer. It was 46 or something, 54, but we lose. I'm not sure I can give a good explanation for that.
I remember on that particular election night at the headquarters, and everyone was quite stunned.
I was. We thought we were going to win. Politically, we had all the groups. My explanation after the fact, if I was smart enough, I would. So this is not, I'm being a Monday morning quarterback here, even though I was in there, thought we could do it, is that there were a certain number of, a percentage of the population that didn't want to change anything. They liked what they had. And then, and unfortunately, maybe that was one of the beginnings of a society that we're now living in, is that people really didn't like people. This was the beginning of either distrust or anything you're for, I'm against. There was a number of people who disliked Governor Engler, and if he was for it, they were against it. But wait a minute. There were a number of people who didn't like the MEA, and if they were for it, another group of people were against it. So you put those all together, it failed. And so that was it. We were done. We were not going to pass it again. And that was the end of literally my lead up to Proposal A. The reason that was so important is, with all due respect, I don't think there's anybody in the state that had worked harder, understood more of it, who wasn't in a position to try one more time to get Proposal A right.
And we get now to Proposal A. And as you say, the lead up to that was on that fateful night in July of 1993.
Yeah.
The Senate was actually prepared to vote on a bill that had passed earlier. It was a certain percentage cut in property taxes.
Senate Bill 1. That's
Senate
correct.
Bill 1. It was passed by the Senate. It was passed by the House, which was an unusual situation because the House was an even split.
That's correct.
The 1992 election resulted in 55 Republicans and 55 Democrats. You had shared power. And it had come back to the Senate to confirm, essentially, the changes the House made. John Cherry, who was the Democratic leader, went out to dinner with Bob Emerson, wrote out in a cocktail napkin a proposal to eliminate all property taxes, handed that to Debbie Stabenow in a caucus meeting. You guys knew about it.
Well, let me tell you, I was in the room. I did not know. You just told me something. I didn't know about who, right? On what cocktail napkin. But I will say where I was and what I can attest to. I am in the meeting with Governor Engler. At that time, the majority leader was Dick Posthumus, and he came to see the governor, and I'm in the room. And he says, then State Senator Debbie Stabenow is going to make this motion. And the argument's pretty interesting. The argument is that this was a 20% cut in property taxes with basically no guarantee of a makeup. If that's good, then a 100% cut and no makeup should be better. All right? I have a great deal of respect for now U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow. Whatever she says, I saw this as just a political maneuver. That's what I saw it as. And even said so, but it doesn't matter. And their argument, in my opinion, was the Senate would either vote it down or certainly the governor would veto it. Because this is $7 billion in property tax. So, Majority Leader Senator Posthumus says to the governor, Governor, will you sign it? And I remember. Others people can remember differently. He said, that won't happen. They won't make it. And to the Senator Posthumus's credit, he said, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, if it comes to you, will you sign it? And now I'm going to go on too long, but it's important. And the answer is, I thought it was a long time, maybe it wasn't. He said I would sign it. I think there was only one head that hit the desk, and that was mine.
Well, you all of a sudden have got a $7 billion problem.
Exactly. Now, the problem is, I'm a technician, all right? I think I'm a good one. And the answer is, I hope people understood what we just did. Between now and December, we can change our minds and look silly, but we can just say we didn't mean it and get the taxes back. But after December, it was my belief, and still to this day, you have lost $7 billion. You can't make it up. Somebody says, well, you can't make it up. You can raise other taxes. You see, this is where a technician comes in. No, not true. What do you mean not true? We had what was called the Headley Amendment. The Headley Amendment limited the total amount of taxes relative to personal income. However, there was a clause in the Headley Amendment that under emergency situations, you could exceed that. Fine. We're going to need a 2/3 vote to use the emergency clause in the Constitution to double the income tax. Really? I didn't know if we could do it or not. And so, but in any event, within 48 hours, it was the law of the land. We had now abolished property taxes. $7 billion were gone, and we needed a new proposal.
I'm just curious, during that night in the Senate when it was being debated, as a reporter who was there, one of 4 reporters who were there, it was an amazing situation. The public, this was going on, the public had no idea. In fact, the governor held a very quick impromptu press conference at about 10:45 in the evening. One of the local TV stations showed up. I was over in my office getting ready to write up the story. As soon as the TV news came on, every light on my phone lit up with people calling saying, what actually just happened? I'm just curious, were you sitting back in whatever little cubbyhole closet, wherever it was you were, during that night of debate saying, please don't pass this, please don't pass this,
No,
please
I
don't
didn't.
pass
I don't
this?
remember that. I don't remember watching him. You got to understand that if that's what they were going to do, then I guess they were going to do. I will say this: I always had a position that if my first idea doesn't work, I had a backup. I wasn't sure where to go. I mean, this is a very, very major issue, and it was going to be. I just hope they knew what they were doing, and I do believe to this day that you can characterize what happened as one of the first games of Texas Hold'em, which is all in. I mean, we were going to either solve it or we were going to look awfully bad. I don't think most politicians would be willing to play that today.
And it wasn't just Michigan that was looking at it. I remember going to the National Governors Association meeting that took place a few weeks after this. And the governors there were all rather astonished and kept saying, how could you guys do this?
I would never recommend eliminating beforehand. But if I could go on with Proposal A?
Yes, and that raises a very good point because the governor signs the bill at a big ceremony down at Dearborn.
Henry Ford, that's correct.
Henry Ford Museum.
Yes, that's correct.
And he turns to someone to say, come up with a proposal. And that person was?
Governor called me up before then, and he said, I'd like you to lead my team in putting a proposal back together again. And I said to the governor, I want to do this. I have the background, I can do this. And I said, how do you want to proceed? He said, I want a commission. I said, Governor, you can't have a commission. I've done commissions. I've told you, the Hardin-Runkle Commission. You can't meet in 60 days if that's how much time I had. He said, no, you have 65 days. I said, no, you can't do it in 65 days. And I said to the governor, I tell you what I can do. You give me the best people in state government, I'll give you their names. And we'll do it. We'll work 7 days a week, and I'll make it happen for you. Now, he said, okay. And some of the people that Mark Hilpert was very important. Nick Corey was very important. Mike Antonesio was very important. These were some of the best, in my opinion, the best people in state government. We did work 7 days a week, only about a half a day on Sunday. And we came up with a much more far-reaching report than I think people expected. When we ultimately proposed to the governor, and then he ultimately recommended it to the legislature, with really 3 sections, and people forget this. The first section was school reform. The second section was school finance. And the third section was state and local changes, property tax changes. People forget about that one. So the first one was school reform. That was the beginning of the discussion on schools of choice, charter schools, all sorts of things.
In some respects, it has become historically one of the biggest impacts of Proposal A.
And then the next issue was, how do you put school finance back together again? Listen, this is a very difficult issue, but I learned, and I'm very serious, I learned from the Hardin-Runkle Commission. Because the Hardin-Runkle Commission came up with the key to school finance reform politically. It was a very simple key, but they came up with it, and I just stole it and put it in my drawer and pulled it out.